Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the West Coast Region session of the Arizona Office of Tourism Regional Webinar Series. Today, we'll be walking through high-level insights for the state, West Coast Region, Mohave, La Paz, and Yuma counties. Just a quick note, some of the numbers have been rounded for easier viewing, so they may not reflect the exact figures. We have an exciting session ahead of us. First, we'll kick things off with our Arizona-specific data, where we'll take a closer look at what's happening across the state. In 2024, Arizona welcomed about 41.2 million overnight visitors, which remained about the same compared to 2023, up 0.7% compared to last year and 1.3% compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019. More impressively, total visitor spending reached about $29.7 billion, a 1.4% increase over last year and a significant 16.2% increase compared to 2019. Let's take a look at travel spending across the state over the past 3 years. The orange line represents 2022, the blue line represents 2023, and the purple line represents 2024. While the lines may appear close together, 2024 actually outperformed both previous years. If you look at the peaks of the trend line, you'll notice that spring continues to be our high season, and 2024 followed that same pattern. In fact, travel spending in March 2024 reached around $4 billion. Let's take a look at statewide visitation for 2024 on a quarterly basis, compared to 2023 in purple and 2019 in blue. Overall, overnight visitation in 2024 shows modest growth compared to 2023 and has surpassed 2019 levels in the second and fourth quarters. This growth is being driven primarily by the leisure and resident travel segments. For example, in Q2 2024, resident visitation was up a strong 7%, and leisure visitation increased 4.6% compared to the same period in 2019. In contrast, the business travel segment continues to lag, with visitation in Q1 and Q3 of 2024 down about 3% and 5% respectively, compared to 2019. Moving on to our last state section, international visitation. In 2024, Arizona welcomed about 5.3 million international visitors, with over 85% of those visitors coming from North America, which consists of Canada and Mexico. Europe is the second largest market with about 8.3% of visitors, followed by Asia Pacific with 4.4%. If you look at the orange chart, we can see that international visitation is growing steadily from 3 million in 2021 to 5.3 million in 2023. While we haven't recovered to 2019's 6.1 million visitors, things are moving in the right direction. Now that we've covered what's happening across the state, let's zoom in on the West Coast counties, Mohave, La Paz, and Yuma, to see what's happening there. Overall, the West Coast region's travel spending was either flat or down in 2024. The largest market, Mohave County, was stagnant with no growth. Yuma County experienced the most significant contraction in the region, decreasing 1.7%, while La Paz County also saw a slight decline. La Paz County experienced a slight 0.8% decline in both overall travel spending and employment in 2024. Despite these declines, tax revenues and travel earnings increased, indicating uneven but modestly positive economic impacts. Accommodation spending remained nearly flat. In 2024, Mohave County's tourism economy held steady. Overall, travel spending was flat as small declines in accommodations were balanced by growth in food services. Despite a slight drop in jobs, worker earnings rose by 4.4%, showing strong investment in the local workforce. In 2024, Yuma County's travel economy saw a 1.7% decline in total spending, driven by an 8.6% drop in lodging revenue. However, food service spending grew by 2.2%, showing some resilience in local demand. Despite the dip in visitor spending, Employment rose slightly by 0.5%, and worker earnings increased by 2.3%, reflecting continued stability in the local tourism workforce. In La Paz County's accommodation spending mix remained stable in 2024, led by day and campground travel. Modest growth in vacation and private homestays suggests diversification, but the region continues to rely primarily on drive-based and outdoor lodging segments. Mohave County's lodging mix in 2024 held steady, led by hotels and private homes. Minimal year-over-year change suggests a mature balanced market with traditional and private lodging, both playing strong roles, with little movement among smaller segments. Yuma County's 2024 spending mix remained largely stable, with a minor shift from hotel stays to day and alternative lodging types. Moving on to spend by commodity. Tourism spending in La Paz County remained steady in 2024. Minor increases in accommodations and food service offset small declines in transportation. Arts and recreation continued to dominate the county's visitor economy. Mohave County's visitor spending in 2024 was stable, led by food services and accommodations. Modest increases in dining and recreation offset small declines in transportation and lodging. Yuma County's visitor spending in 2024 reflected modest growth in food and recreation, but declines in lodging and transportation. Moving on to our next section, let's turn our attention to lodging performance. In this section, we'll discuss short-term rentals for the West Coast region. Short-term rentals in the West Coast region expand in 2024, with supply growing faster than demand. This indicates a competitive market with increasing property availability and steady but slower book growth. In our next section, we will focus on airport passenger traffic in the West Coast region. For state-level data, please go to our website at tourism.az.gov. On this chart, we're looking at two West Coast airports, or shall I say three, along with Phoenix Sky Harbor. While Sky Harbor isn't technically part of the West Coast region, it's Arizona's busiest airport and a major gateway for visitors exploring the other parts of the state. In 2024, domestic passenger traffic at Phoenix Sky Harbor stayed above 2023 and 2022 levels for most of the year, with a sharp spike in March nearing 5 million across the West Coast. Across the West Coast, airport traffic dipped slightly by 2.8% after a strong 2023. While mid-year activity softened, airports saw a steady recovery toward the end of the year. Moving right along to state and national park visitation data for the West Coast region. In 2024, total state park visitation in the West Coast region fell slightly, down about 1%. The overall decline reflects mixed performance across the parks. Smaller parks like River Island and Alamo Lake saw strong double digits growth, but larger parks like Lake Havasu, Colorado River, and Yuma Territorial Prison experienced declines, pulling down the region's total. In 2024, national parks in the West Coast region saw solid growth, led by double-digit gains at Lake Mead. Visitation was strong early in the year and remained steady throughout the spring, helping drive the region's overall 10.6% increase. Let's shift over to the gross sales in the West Coast region. In 2024, La Paz County's gross sales remained mostly stable, with different sectors showing mixed trends. Hotel and motel sales rebounded slightly to 16.8 million, up 0.5% from 2023, driven by strong spring and steady summer activity, though still below 2022 levels. Retail led growth, reaching 220.2 million, up 5.8%, supported by steady spending and strong year-end gains. Restaurant sales rose to 65.6 million, up 1% from 2023 and nearly 8% above 2022. Mohave County's gross sales in 2024 were highlighted by a massive 45% surge in the amusement sector. The county's largest sectors, retail and restaurants, provide a stable economic base, with restaurants experiencing a slight growth compared to the previous year. The only area of softness was the hotel and motel sector, which remained almost flat after a decline of 1.2% compared to 2023. In 2024, Yuma County's hotel and motel sector declined for a second year in a row. Meanwhile, food service, amusement, and retail saw moderate growth, showing that visitor spending shifted more toward dining and retail experiences than lodging. Overall, the county's tourism economy is mixed, with strong performance in retail and restaurants offset by continued weakness in hotels. We've now reached our final section. Let's take a look at what visitors in the West Coast region are doing. In 2024, travel to the West Coast region was mainly leisure-driven. Most visitors came to visit friends and relatives, going touring or enjoying outdoor activities, with these three segments making up nearly 70% of total visitation activities. Business and convention travel remained a much smaller part of the region's tourism profile. In the West Coast region, hotels are the most popular accommodation, used by over half of all visitors. Motels and smaller options like bed and breakfasts and lodges come in next. Many visitors staying with friends or relatives still choose paid lodging, showing a balanced mix of commercial and personal travel stays. In 2024, La Paz County drew mostly short-stay visitors from Arizona and Southern California, with longer stays from Texas. About 81% of stayed overnight, and 63.5% were repeat visitors showing strong loyalty. Phoenix accounts for 21% of overnight visitors, and Los Angeles about 19%, together representing more than 40% of all overnight trips. Visitors from Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth stayed the longest, averaging 6.4 and 4.5 days. While Phoenix and Palm Springs, visitors stayed the shortest, around 1.3 to 1.6 days. Repeat visitation was over 60% in most markets, reaching 75.6% for Houston, highlighting strong loyalty among long-distance travelers. In 2024, Mohave County continued to attract a mix of regional and long-distance visitors. About 81% stayed overnight and 64% were repeat visitors, with an average stay of 2.9 days. The top markets, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, accounted for over a third of overnight trips. Visitors from nearby cities like Las Vegas and Phoenix stayed the shortest, 1.3 and 1.6 days, while those from further away, such as Chicago and Dallas-Fort Worth, stayed longer, 6.3 and 3.6 days. Repeat visitation was strong across all markets, ranging from 63% to 70%, showing consistent loyalty. In Yuma, in 2024, in the county, things stayed strong overnight with repeat visitation. Over 81% of visitors stayed overnight and 65% were repeat visitors, with an average stay of 3 days. Phoenix accounted for 21% of visitors, followed by Los Angeles at 7% and San Diego at 6%, making them the top origin markets. Repeat visitation was highest from Yuma Centro at 73% and Dallas-Fort Worth at 72%. Visitors from distant markets like Seattle and New York stayed the longest, around 6.6 to 6.7 days, while most regional visitors stayed less than 2 days. That wraps up our webinar on the West Coast region for Arizona. For more details on which counties make up each region, you can refer to this map. Be sure to tune in to the next time as we continue with the next session in the Arizona Office of Tourism's regional webinar series. For more regional data, please visit us at tourism.az.gov and navigate to the regional profile section or scan the QR code. If you have any questions on what we covered today or other research questions, please feel free to contact us. We hope the data we provided today is helpful. Thank you for joining us.